Welcome, everyone. This is Karl and Danny with GetWisdom, and today we're going to continue with the channeling series. And today, Karl is going to channel Amy Winehouse, who was a shooting star from the UK. She was a jazz singer, became very popular very quick. Fame kind of overtook her, as well as her addictions, which is pretty well known amongst a lot of people who followed her, know about her, and followed her career. There's already been a documentary about her. I think she passed away in 2011, and she was quite a talent. And she died young, and she joined what is known as the 27 Club. So Karl has channeled individuals that kind of might be in the same category as Amy Winehouse, but she's a little more recent and than some of the other ones that we've done. And so we've got 6 questions for her today, so hopefully this will be interesting for our viewers. Thanks, Karl, for joining us and doing this with us every week.
Every week.
Every week we come back.
I keep turning up. Like a bad penny, as the age-old ancient saying goes. I don't know when that was from, maybe 2000 BC or something, but here I am. I still show up, so trying to do my part to bring forth truth and enlightenment as best I can, and as best I can get help from the light beings who have been here, done it, and moved on for better or worse in terms of their personal lives and accomplishments. So thank you for watching, and we really appreciate it. And that's why we're here, really. Denny and I don't need to be talking to each other like this and taking this time and agonizing over these things, especially when we kind of have a foreknowledge of the sort of things that'll come forward at this point, because we've been doing this for years now. And there is a theme to it. There is an agenda of the divine realm. And that's why they're talking to us through me in particular, because I want that to happen. And I'm stepping forward and asking for it, and doing it in a way that ensures safety of the enterprise. Most channelers get taken out. They are not cautious. They reach out with their intuition, and someone comes and says hello and pretends to be who they're trying to reach. And then it's off to the races. They'll be minded. They'll be given hand-holding indefinitely to keep them sidelined with disinformation. And it'll sound good. It'll be positive and encouraging, but it won't really advance the narrative. And they won't be getting information about the hidden truths, the hidden forces abroad in the land and globally shaping human experience in every walk of life, every level, every institution of humanity has been corrupted. And it's being corrupted in a way to serve the darkness. Frankly, this is not a good thing. So, my gosh, people need to awaken and see that for what it is.
Yeah.
Look around you. Use that lens. See how it looks to you if someone were to tell you, well, people are being pushed into madness, being pushed into illogical, short-sighted, superficial thinking, a kind of knee-jerk response out of bias and prejudice, serving some agenda that might fit them, but won't fit many other people. So there are disagreements. It used to be we could tolerate disagreements, but less and less so. Now it's often a cause for war again, and again, and divisiveness and backbiting and finger pointing and all of that. And all the social unrest and the crime and all of it, it's all because of the darkness. People need to wake up. So when we go up to the light and talk with beings who are back home, because that's where our home really is.
Yeah.
And they've been here in the light or in the physical plane and had a lifetime with an agenda coming down that we all have. One that's kind of specific to us because it fits our background, our knowledge we've gained through the centuries, through a series of incarnations here. but also an agenda to serve the light in some way and to help humanity. We need help. We need lots of help here. We need help of all kinds, and mostly to have an awakening, to get enough people to reach out to the light, to the divine light, to the Almighty, and ask for deliverance. Ask for everyone to be raised up, especially the perpetrators in our world who have been corrupted by the darkness. That is the first order of business. You can't do things in a normal way and deal with normal life when you have perpetrators in your midst, because you're in danger. They can pull the rug out from under you at a moment's notice, and you won't see it coming, and you'll be helpless. So the first thing, the first priority needs to be to get them moved out. And we need divine help for that. So that's my little spiel. And as a channeler, I know more than 90% of channelers have had that befall them. They're not really
Right.
reaching an authentic voice. It's an imposter. It's an extraterrestrial imposter in almost every case. A psychic sitting somewhere, tuning in to the ether, seeing them step forward, and then resuming a dialogue. And they know all about that person. They've studied them. They know their history and makeup. And this is a high level extraterrestrial capability, because these beings are telepathic and so on. So it's child's play for them, but it serves them to keep truth away from people. So that's what we're after.
Yeah.
And we hope that Amy will give us some of the truth as she sees it about what we'll ask of her.
And she's not notable in terms of us channeling a musician who's had an early death and from drug or alcohol abuse. She's certainly not the first person like that where you've channeled. But what maybe set her apart a little bit is the fact that she's a jazz singer. She wasn't rock and roll. She wasn't rap. She wasn't some of the other genres of music. She was a jazz vocalist. She composed using a guitar, and she was pretty confident, performing on her own. She was a little bit awkward socially. I don't think she was quite prepared for fame. But I know you have an interest in jazz, and is there something about jazz that maybe might be notable insofar as this kind of a subject, channeling subject? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind about that for you?
Well, I have my own perspective about jazz in general, and I see it as one of the more sophisticated and challenging and deep involvements with music and the possibilities of music. Kind of the difference between pop music and classical.
Right.
That the one is kind of more spontaneous, easy, can be done informally, and appeals to the everyday person. But the classical is more formal, has many more rules and more complexity. And the sounds are challenging to the ear, and it demands acclimating to. It's an acquired taste, just like with certain foods that are more sophisticated and complicated. And so jazz is like that as well. It's not something that appeals to everyone right off the bat, but it's based on music theory that obeys the principles of divine physics, if you will, and the divine love that comes to us through music. So it's something that suits certain people more than others. But it's a highly developed and sophisticated and demanding art form. So it takes a certain kind of person who's capable of reaching really deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's my bias. That's, you
Yeah,
shoot
yeah.
me if you want, but
No.
uh, these rock tunes, with four chords that are,
Right.
that's all there is to it, over and over.
Right.
And the pop songs today drive me up the wall where they repeat the same phrase
Yeah.
12 times, the four
Yeah.
bars over and over and over and over. Like this is like what we want to hear. And that repetition, I mean, to me, that's a poverty of ideas. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference with jazz. It's more free form. It's more intricate and allows a freedom of expression you won't find with other types of music.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful platform for improvisation in particular because it all follows a structure so it will all sound acceptable, but it's wondrous to behold. And what people can do with it creatively is phenomenal. They're in the right
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah. So,
So
and I think about what you're saying, and then I try to apply that to um, this tragedy we see amongst young people involved in music, and how there's so many particulars for each individual that goes beyond just the realm of music. These people have their own karmic backgrounds, relationship issues, health issues, all you know, family genetic issues that may contribute to the addiction scenario more heavily than for others. So I understand all that, but I always wonder about those kinds of differences and how that looks from the divine realm's perspective, and also the unseen world that the interlopers use to manipulate humans. And what are their particular inroads, and where would they be more motivated to mess with somebody as opposed to someone else? So I have some questions here that kind of like dance around that a little bit, hoping that maybe she would talk about that a little bit, because it is true that statistically there's a higher death rate for these people than the normal population, the general population. So if you're a musician, singer, songwriter, and apparently, especially if you are enjoying some success, there's a greater chance that you're gonna have an early death than when compared to the rest of the population in the same age group. So that's interesting. It also could be a little bit misleading.
well, we can be accused of cherry picking here, that because these particular people have visibility, we're taking a small handful compared to the billions of people on the planet, et cetera. But I think it would be interesting to see the actuarial tables,
Yeah,
how many accountants die young and how many,
yeah, yeah. Carpenters.
school teachers die young and
Yeah,
burn out on drugs and so on,
yeah,
and it's often blamed on the lifestyle. And, that's understandable to some degree, but there's a reason the lifestyles are embraced and the temptations come to those individuals because there are drug dealers serving all of society, for example, the professionals at all levels and all walks of life. And physicians have a very high rate of addiction to drugs also. So, this is a scourge. And, we're maybe teasing apart something in particular, but there is something to it. It's the ones who step forward in life and become examples to others, especially if they are reawakening something in them that is of a spiritual nature, even just feelings, being uplifting. That is a crime to the interlopers who run the world. And this has been made clear in the channelings that we've done.
yes,
That what they hate the most, I was just editing a channeling this morning from George Orwell, we talked with
yeah,
last year sometime, and finally getting a transcript generated and edited. And he was saying that the one thing they hate the most, these extraterrestrial interlopers, is someone who is pristine, who hasn't had their world darkened and is bright eyed and eager and
Positive.
positive. Oh my goodness, what a crime. That's a thought crime, using Orwell's terminology. So here come these young people who are full of life, full of music because they're in tune with the higher realm. That's where music comes from. So it makes them a target, I think, inherently. So
Yeah.
we'll see what she has to say about it.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I'm glad we talked about that before we got started. So we have 6 questions for her, and so it should be interesting. Should we go ahead and get started?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll just take a few minutes to get in the state of consciousness I need to make the connection and put protection around the work. Very, very important. I go through the creator of all it is. I'm talking about the big guy, the big gal, the big whatever
Kahuna.
in between. Yeah, the big kahuna. I love it because it has an A on the end. So it's revenue,
Yeah.
positive leaning to many. Let's get the feminine
Right.
goddess energy going here. So I'm always cultivating my inner woman, and I don't know how it's going, but it's still a work in progress.
Right.
And I mean that lovingly. I'm not mocking anyone. Please don't misunderstand me. It's kind of interesting. We were chatting before we got going here, Denny and I, about other possible figures we might connect to. And I was bringing up the issue of racism, which is on a lot of people's minds at the current time in America because of the politics and the issues that people struggle with, and the idea of having something that is lofty and enlightened come is always the answer, and music provides that. So I always try to have a authentic voice here. It's so very important.
Yeah.
And if I don't take the trouble to do that, nothing's going to happen that's good.
Right. That's good. Right.
Yeah. And the difficulty, one of the differentiations is if it's all about sweetness and light, it's probably not much worth hearing. That's as far as I would say. You don't know beyond that, is it authentic or not? But what I would argue is the person isn't open, whoever's doing it isn't open enough to the real world and the realities we face to be spending their time wisely. Yes, it's nice to have enlightening, uplifting words to give encouragement. And we hear those as we go along. But if that's all you do, I would say there's something off.
Yeah.
Because we got real trouble here.
Right.
And it's urgent that we address it.
Yeah. It's needed, but not at the expense of not giving out the warning.
Right. Right. So either the person...
The house is on fire.
Yes. So either the channeler is getting someone who is an imposter and won't be told about anything useful and problems and how to solve them in particular, or the individual themselves doing the channeling has been gotten to and are blind to the reality of those things. And that happens too. There are channelers who don't believe in evil.
Yeah.
I rest my case. Call me dark. Call me corrupt if you want. But, look at history. You can't say it's all been a beautiful experience
Right.
and excursion.
Right.
There's a lot of dark chapters,
Yeah.
So
the last 120 years, if you just focused on that, you'd have ample evidence that there's something wrong.
Yeah. So, and it's not just that humans are corrupt and evil. There's something that brings that to them because we have a divine origin. So, all right,
Okay.
let's talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing.
Okay. Amy Winehouse,
Someone
In the Light.
in the light, in the
Yes.
heavenly realms.
Okay.
This is Amy Winehouse speaking.
Thank you for joining us. Did you become an earthbound spirit when you died?
Unfortunately, this is exactly what happened for me. I was in a moment of disconnection, and as I passed, descended into deeper darkness than my darkest fears had been. And there were beings waiting for me and greeting my arrival, not with friendliness, but with savagery. You have heard this tale many times now. Your channel has been on the scene, rescuing many as well. But the gift you have given me to rise above that sordid state of affairs has been the greatest of blessings, because I am now with Creator and many, many loving friends and companions who I've known throughout the ages, friends of yours as well, friends of many, many other human beings alive in the world as we speak, who do not know their past, have no awareness of the many loving beings watching over them, encouraging them in all they do, and wishing them well. This fate befalls many who transition unprepared. Most who die young die from struggle, from careless conduct or reckless behavior, often engaged in out of frustration, ignorance, and vulnerability, seeking an escape in many instances with use of drugs and alcohol. This was my fate. In effect, I lined myself up to be my own victim, but was in fact pushed into this. This befalls many who have a positive agenda for the world. That is one reason among many the world is so very dark, that many would-be bringers of truth are snuffed out, sidelined, suppressed, and subjugated, and their power taken away from them, if not their lives. The world is a darker place as a result. My rescue allows me to live again in a positive realm, enabling me to return once again to the struggle of humanity. And this I plan to do, and is only possible because of you.
Okay, thank you. How does the idea of not being willing to go to drug addiction rehab and what we surmise about not having a positive relationship with the source creator relate?
Addiction, most would agree, is a trap. It is a trap on many levels, not all appreciated fully. It is a slippery slope of self-enticement and appeals to the senses because of its ability to soften the edges, the rough edges of discord, difficulty, doubt, disbelief, discouragement, and despair. When people struggle with their lives and see life as too hard and are tormented within on levels they cannot even see consciously, this sets them up to be vulnerable. And the use of anything of a chemical nature that brings relief to take away the pain they feel will be a powerful attraction and allows many times of reprieve. This is how it begins. And of course, with the acclimation to the effects of the substance being abused, more and more is necessary to approach what was previously felt in the peak experiences of inner delight and anesthetization from the cares and woes of the person's struggle. At some point of diminishing returns, one reaches levels of intake that become frankly dangerous to physiologic functioning, and in the end risk death taking them. The difficulty in seeking help or accepting help is that it becomes so the focus and seemingly the only worthwhile reward. And in fact, such a necessity, it comes to replace the entirety of one's life as the main pursuit. People will not readily surrender and walk away. The powerful grip of addiction prevents them. And this becomes a huge obstacle to seeking relief and accepting the suggestions, the admonitions of loving family, and at times the decrees of the state if one becomes out of control and a threat to themselves or society, and rehabilitation is enforced through law to make the person attend. The other difficulty and liability is the disconnection from life achieved through chemical means serves as a disconnection of the senses in many other respects. It is a disconnection from the divine as well, as most such use will inhibit the intuitive gateway. And that is your link to the divine realm, to the higher self, the seat of conscience, and your best source of guidance in life. You are cutting off your lifeline through this disconnection. There is a weakening of physical defenses through the bioenergy field that is still unappreciated by mainstream science, the so-called aura. This is not an artifact of life and a curiosity. It is an essential energetic envelope that shields the person from intrusive energies. It is much like having a wetsuit as a skin diver. It shields the diver from excess environmental influence, allowing them to dive in very cold waters. We can tell you from personal experience, there is nothing colder and more devoid of love than the dark spirit beings who have fallen from grace and are now a scourge to your world and beyond. That realm around you is a somewhat higher vibrational realm, but still far below the heavens. It is the land of the depraved ones, the dark spirit forces that seek the living to tap their energy for their own survival as a parasite. And they are the worst kind of parasite because they bring inner depravity to the individual and serve as a source of corruption and a worsening in all respects of the person's life experience. They bully you from within because you have already been corrupted by the interlopers to be unaware of a key part of your mind that resides deep, deep within and borders the intuitive gateway. It, in fact, is a major portion of your mind that is off limits to you consciously. When it is filled with dark, demented beings, criticizing you, mocking, belittling, threatening, and stirring up your darkest memories and even the failings of other lifetimes you have suffered. You will be within a torrent, much like I started off describing in my sojourn in the lower astral realm on my passing. This fate is currently suffered by billions of people who have dark spirit attachments. It is only they do not know this consciously that they are so vulnerable. But nonetheless, they will be dragged down. Their lives will be diminished. Their body will suffer the consequences of chronic, unrelenting stress that results. And they may well develop so much warped thinking, they become sidelined in their life progress and journey for the soul to not only underperform, but to fail utterly to accomplish anything close to their life mission. This is quite a loss and quite a risk to take simply to get high. Yet this is what those using substances of abuse are doing unwittingly, and they will lose as a consequence. These dark influences can be removed and is the premier cause and contribution of your channel in proposing an ideal healing protocol that first removes these darkest of influences from individuals, followed by deep karmic repair and healing for the body, mind, and spirit. The consequences of ignoring rehab are grave. The fate of those with addictions is well known at this point. It is talked about incessantly, particularly with the opioid crisis, so-called, because it is a devastation of the current generation. The siren song of the ultimate happy pill is at hand, and the downside will follow in all too many instances.
Okay, thank you. Since your love for music and singing seems so strong, and music seems to be one of the human's greatest connections to the divine realm, why did that love of music not prevail as a guiding principle for you?